This video is brought to you by our friends at Gorilla Car Care, a premium detailing product at an affordable price and your classic car or truck's best friend for maintaining a showroom shine. Go to gorillacarcare.com today.
Now I know what you're thinking. This sculpture, which was made in conjunction with Montclair, the high fashion outfitter, must be something similar to what's coming in the future. In other words, an all-electric G-Wagon. It's not. This is not even close. Come on, let's have a look at these oversized massive tires that are definitely going to look, well, not a place on a moon buggy. That's right. And if you're curious, yeah, they're made out of like fiberglass or something like that. Yeah, when I first saw this, I thought, hey, maybe like nestled underneath the new drivetrain to the new electric G-Wagon would be part of it. And the answer is absolutely not. Come over to the back. Let's have a look-see. By the way, don't miss that detail. Now, I know a lot of you guys are sitting here going, why would they make this at all? Well, it's not exactly a sculpture. Actually, they painted an old G-Wagon. And of course, Montclair worked with them. Does the zipper work? Well, I actually had Moto Man trying to unzip this. Don't know why, but he thought it would be interesting. Anyway, unfortunately, there's nothing in this vehicle that indicates anything with the upcoming G-Wagon electric. I hate to disappoint you, but I have some good news. Follow me. You see, I'm lucky enough to work with somebody who's going to tell us about two of perhaps the most beautiful Mercedes-Benz vehicles that have been built over the past 60 plus years. And they're right over here. There's a 69 Pagoda and a 54 300 SL Gullwing. And to take you through this, I'm going to take the camera, and we've got Moto Man.
Greetings.
Please tell us about these vehicles.
Well, there's something you forgot to tell the audience.
Okay.
Where are we?
Oh, we're in California.
Yes, we're in the California Republic, but specifically, these cars are in front of the Mercedes-Benz design studio in Carlsbad, California.
Yeah.
So why is this important? Well, you know the new AMG SL 55 and 63? It was designed here, as well as a number of other Mercedes-Benz passenger cars over the past couple of years.
Yeah, but these were designed in Germany properly.
I would argue these two cars were the most important cars of their era, and for many years beyond it, for two completely different reasons. Let's start with this one over here.
All right.
So as Nathan told you, this is a 1954 300 SL Gullwing. So this is the first year of a production Gullwing. So those of you that know Gullwings, these cars were race cars in 1952. Then the importer for Mercedes-Benz USA, Max Hoffman, he went to the company and said, we should build those for production, meaning sell them as street cars. And of course, in the typical German fashion, they said, this is not possible. Well, Maxie Hoffman is the kind of guy that, you know the old saying, put up or shut up?
Yep.
He actually went to Mercedes-Benz and said, I tell you what, I'm gonna place an order for 1,000 of them. And Mercedes was like, where would you like them sent? And that's how the car got into production. There's a lot of details back and forth. I'm sure we could do a whole podcast with Roman and Tommy about how the details to fill in how we got from Maxie Hoffman to the cars over in the US. But at the end of the day, there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, you know the old saying, this is a race car for the street?
Yeah.
In many cases, that's crap. This is not the case here. These, they have a bird cage in them. So think about the concept of the bird cage Maserati, the way they look.
Yeah, the Cambrio Corso.
Literally, it's like a bird cage in that it's thin aluminum tubes that are put together to make a very strong structure.
Right.
Well, the problem with that is you have to have the structure, the cage, all the way around the car in the case of a race car. But in a car that's going to maybe be made for the street, you want to be able to open up the door and have easy ingress and egress. They lock the door on me because they don't want bums like me opening the car.
Well, that's why they got the security guy over there who's in our frames.
So notice, yeah, see, he's right there.
Yeah.
He's ready to throw me out.
That's right.
So notice how much higher the door is here. That's because the bird cage comes around the passenger cell. So instead of making a traditional door like this, that's where the Gullwing came in to open the door and have more room to get in and out of the car.
And this is one of the early versions of Gullwing.
This is the first year of production.
Yeah, but
so
on
there
top
was
of
an
that,
earlier version. There was a 1952, but that was a race car.
Race car. But in terms of having a Gullwing door on a production car, I can't think of anything earlier.
Well,
that
there
used
were carrosserie type built cars. So you would buy a chassis, and then you'd have like a French body maker make a car. That's a custom one-off. If you go to like places like Pebble Beach or Via d'Este, you'll probably see cars that will have Gullwing doors,
Yeah,
but they were one-off. This is
exactly.
a production car.
This is production. That's exactly my point.
I don't want to make a blanket statement that this was the first ever.
But it's an early
because there are
adoption.
cars. But yeah, this is a very early adoption. There's another thing going on here. Come over to the front of the car and show them this. If you look from the front, notice how much wider the car is than the passenger compartment. See how much more narrow this is? This wasn't a function of the Gullwing door. This was a function of making a car that's smaller, lighter, and has a smaller engine go faster. You see, Mercedes, they first focused on aerodynamics with this car, and the idea was to keep the car low weight. Let's have less frontal area going against the wind. So the idea is, let's put the passengers closer together and make it less frontal area so the air can go around the car faster or more slippery.
So did it have a straight six as its power plant?
So that's another point about this car. So yes, the 1952 race car, as well as these production cars, they had the straight six from the Adenauer, which was the large luxury car from Mercedes-Benz. So a 3-liter inline six. But here's a case where you get a 3-liter inline six that was over 200 horsepower in 1954. That's unheard of. Like V8s from Chevrolet, they were doing at best, what, 150 at that point? Here, they had the race car, the 1952, that was carbureted. So that was carbureted. It didn't have a lot of the accoutrement like this one that the street cars had. So here they decided, how do we make it go faster, make it more efficient, get the horsepower up? So this was the first production car to have mechanical fuel injection. So this has I would love to show you the engine. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. We have one of these at the hangar that I shoot at, and I did a full first drive review, or what I call retro drive review, of a 1954 300 SL Gullwing. And I do want to point something out that is unique about this specific car for those that are really into Gullwings. Notice the three-pointed star. So basically the star and the laurel, which became the Mercedes logo of the two companies. What they did here, notice they call this the concave logo. The star and laurel. That was only on the 54 and 55 cars. This was very, very hard to manufacture. So over the production run of Gullwings, which went from 54 to 57, they changed the star and the laurel to be flat. So if you look at a 57, this is a very different star and laurel. And if you find these things, these are much, much more expensive to replace if you could even find the part. So this is a big deal in the Gullwing world. Then another thing about the Gullwing, notice the wheels. So this is a very interesting engineering solution. It's more than the knockoff. What's going on here, the axle goes through the wheel and all the way to the differential in the center of the car. This was a factory option. Believe it or not, very few of them came out of the factory with this factory option. This is one of those things like, how many 1969 Corvettes with 427s exist today? More than came out of the factory originally. Same deal here, because this one option adds about $25,000 in value to the car.
Wow. Did this have independent rear suspension?
The whole thing is independent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, another early adopter of independent suspensions. Yeah. I mean, obviously race car technology.
Well, this literally was a race car.
Right.
This was an unusually fast car. Like, you could take on pretty much anything in its day. This today, like, my viewers know that we've got one of these to play around with. It's not my personal car. I wish I personally owned it, but a very good friend owns it and lets me drive it every once in a while. And what's funny about this car, it keeps up in traffic today. Like I'm driving around Southern California and this is easy to drive. It's easy to drive in and out of traffic, and you could take it to the canyons and go through and even slip the rear end a little bit.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But there's one thing about it that's not easy, and that's getting in and out, especially for a fat guy like me.
I would argue it's, well, for
No,
you
I got
it would
in
be a
one
problem.
before. I got in one before,
Yeah,
and it
for
was
you,
painful.
But that's just a you thing.
It is a me
That's
thing.
fine.
But there is a solution, and that's next to you.
There is a solution, yes.
Yes.
So this was a completely different vehicle. Believe it or not, this replaced this, which I find fascinating. Most people look at this and like, how can you go from this to something that frankly could be considered boring?
Yeah.
You look at this is what design was in the 1960s. Very simple, very minimalist. You could almost liken this to like mid-century modern homes in Palm Springs. But this car was more than just being a convertible or a more usable daily for Mercedes. Believe it or not, it was the Pagoda that brought seat belts and padded dashboards and safety steering wheels to production cars, not Volvos. So all of that stuff was pioneered here in the Mercedes. And they also pioneered intrusion bars in the door as well as a cage around the car so it would perform better in crashes.
Huh. Okay, and what's powering this one?
So there were 3 engines on offer in this car. There was a 2.3 inline 6, a 2.5 inline 6, and this, the 2.8 inline 6. So there was the 230, the 250, and the 280. In terms of output, they were about the same all the way through in terms of real performance. The reason why they had to go to 2.8 here was because these cars, they did have smog on them. So you lost performance. That's why they tried to increase the output from the bigger engine. In going from the 230 to 250, they increased the torque. Now, a big option on these cars, you could have gotten a 5-speed manual in the 280 SL. So now in the classic car world, the one that is worth all the money in the world, and they used to be like 50 grand, now they're like 200 grand if you can get a 280 SL with a 5-speed manual.
Wow. Okay, final question. What do you think these two cars are worth?
Okay, so this is a 1969, so it's the second to last year. It has the factory air conditioning. It has the factory Becker AM/FM radio. So this was like a super spaceship of its day. Also, another thing I forgot to mention, in the 250s, that brought about rear disc brakes. So the 280s also benefited from that. So I would say this is probably a condition 2. It's better than a driver. All the interior is perfect, but it's the automatic, so it does suffer a little bit. I'd say that's probably worth about $125,000 today. This car, different story. This market's changed over the past couple of years. It used to be the Gullwing was worth more, then the Roadsters were worth more, and the reason why was simple. These, some people complain, they're hot, they're stuffy to drive. The only air you get in is through here or in the back there. As such, it's kind of a personal thing, but the reality is these have now exceeded the Roadsters again. So this, in recent auctions, they've gone for as much as $2 million. The lowest I've seen a Gullwing go for is $1.1 million over the past 5 years. Roadsters are anywhere between $900,000 and $1.8 million.
Great. So we're going to suggest to Roman that we buy one of these as a studio car in the near future. Moto Man, thank you very much for your input. I appreciate it. See you guys.